Get going.
The town website up.
Sounds like two more are coming. Or, Scott's coming up talking to himself, maybe. A couple of options there.
Do we know anybody that's particularly gonna be missing today?
No. Like I said, Dave's a half hour late.
Sounds like.
Yep. Yep. We were wondering whether it was, two of you coming up or Scott talking to himself.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. Nice weekend, dinner. Thank you.
All right, and just no one else. Okay.
All right, so it's 7 o'clock or thereabout. Let's get started. Intro, any public commenty like things? No? No.
The chair?
Yep.
I'm not sure if you're gonna bring up the PowerPoint that you're gonna show at the school committee. Okay, so
Yeah, I'll bring that up as part of discussion of,
something,
yeah,
got it.
D and E here. And have to break down, get the glasses out, read the notes to myself so that I can provide some public comment, because I clearly intended to. One was that Medway has a trail website that supposedly is pretty good. It was shown to us at the Trails Club meeting. So something else for folks to take a look at.
To that point, what made it good? It's just sound cool or?
They had an interesting trail. It was trying to connect to another town, but also in the area around a field by the school, they had gotten DCR Trails grant money to put in a accessible type trail that links to other trails and kind of almost making a trail campus, which was kind of nice. Again, inclusivity, getting having a handicap accessible. So,
I'll find it and put the link to it in the minutes.
that would be great. And then another note that Ed Harrow brought up, he's the chair of Open Space. Been sort of an ongoing issue over by Cameron Woods. Somebody's running around over there with motorbike and or ATV. And the comment was made that we don't have any sort of signage up. So, yes, there's sort of this broad, thou shalt not use them on the town trails, but do we want to think about signage? So I'm just bringing it up. We can talk about it at another meeting. In a little more detail. March 26 meeting minutes. Anyone have any comments on those? Read there.
Yeah.
I
I had to do them from the report.
I was impressed.
It's very dull task.
Listening to us, pearls of wisdom dropping all over the page. That was dull.
Actually, one thing I want to bring up is when two people talk at once, it's impossible to hear. So some of the minutes weren't great because of that, those parts, but we should, if there's anyone listening at home, that's a bad thing when we do that. So we should just be conscious of it.
At least our voices are fairly loud.
I will tell you, Linda, just as if this happened again, ChatGPT does a really nice job of.
Thinking of all?
Yeah, it literally takes all the verbal notes and will put it in written form for you.
Right, but then you have to go clean it all. I mean, if we did the whole meeting, that'd be 20 pages long instead of the 4 that it is.
Somebody does it in our company and it takes an hour meeting in like 3
Really?
pages. I don't know how they do it.
Wow, I'll try that if I ever.
It's pretty cool.
Probably tell it. Distill the 3 pages.
Give
Thank
me
you.
a synopsis.
That's-
I don't know.
Test it out against the notes you took against it.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And you're not afraid to be replaced?
Not, yeah.
Not yet, right?
Alrighty.
No.
Yeah.
So I've got here set dates for the meetings.
Hold on, we have to approve the minutes.
Good point.
Moved.
Second. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
And I'll let Chuck in.
Okay, so all those approved and carries. What was that?
You never said all those opposed.
Anyone opposed?
There you go.
Abstentions? Okay,
I have a quick question, comment. So the item about the signs, or we had talked about the organizational keeping a backlog of items. Is that added to the backlog list? Do we have a running backlog list?
That's a really good point.
mhm,
I'll share. At some point, we should talk about where all these things
Right.
are
Yeah.
living.
It's a running list, even if it's
Yeah.
separate. Okay, thanks.
good point.
Really good.
All right, set dates for meetings through June. So basically, we're talking. I've got April 21st down on the calendar. Did we already decide that? For April, no, not April, May. Yes, we were. I'm just losing a month.
Yeah.
That's right. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Third
so
Wednesday.
so we're looking in June.
So May 21st, we're meeting. Do you have a phone book? Do you have one?
No, I do not.
Okay.
We looked on tonight before I came over.
And are you choosing this room on purpose?
No.
Okay.
Good question. Do we prefer this or the second floor? I mean, lower level is first choice, as far as
I
I'm.
thought last time we were there, the video didn't work, as
It's
long as that's fixed
this,
in the lowest level.
Basement.
basement usually does work well, but
Like the last time
But yeah.
there it was out and that's not good, so.
right. No, but that one usually works fine, so.
I prefer that one. I mean,
And then second choice would be this one or second floor.
Does this get hot in summertime?
I think it does.
It does.
And also, I think the acoustics on the second floor are horrible.
Yes.
The
So-
downside of this gets really loud in the summer. We've been up
Yeah,
there.
with the air conditioner on,
Okay.
it's loud.
Cranks out pretty loud.
So acoustics downstairs, second floor here, they're both bad.
But this
Acoustic in the
rounds up.
basement is the best.
Right, but we're talking about so I think that
Oh,
they're
yeah.
first choice.
The select board.
Yeah.
And so we,
It's-
right, so the acoustics in that room versus the acoustics up here,
This is better, I think.
this is better.
other option is the library.
They like to do that, but, I would say
do it, you
that
just have to
put
be
a
outside.
standing, if you like, if we decided to meet every Thursday or whatever it was, once a month,
That'd be all.
you could put in a standing reservation.
Yeah,
And
well,
they
that's
will
what I tried.
recommend it.
Yeah.
And they will accept it, but we have to decide.
I did, but everyone's kind of getting wise to that, so everyone else is booking out way out. That's why we ended up here for all those meetings. So
I'm
we
just
we booked that in
suggesting.
advance. Yeah, no.
Let's try
Yeah,
basement.
it's worth
So
it.
did we took a gym date or we still?
We did not.
Had you thought about like the first Wednesday of the month or the third Wednesday of the month is,
Second
What did
Wednesday
you
of the
think?
month. The First,
Second Wed-
first Wednesday is Trails Club conflict, so second or third are usually the,
I think if we just
So the 11th of the 18th.
made a standing like the second Wednesday, or whatever month, then it would be easier to request it with IT that we have something like that. And then if something came up, we could always change it.
yeah. No, that's, I mean, again, that's what we try to do is to reach out. Everyone else is doing it.
So it's the
11th or
11th of the 18th to Tuesday.
No, as people, I'll start 11th,
Yeah,
second Wednesday,
Any
Works
second
well.
Wednesday, good.
because towards the middle end of the month tend to get busier with work and stuff for me.
Does second Wednesday not work for anyone?
Okay, well, let's try that then.
It's also nice to like post on a web page or something, traditional training, you know.
For the rest of the year for that. All righty. Project updates. Briefly discuss ongoing and planned projects. So first one is road signs. Oh, and you had a chance to see what we, Linda put together and sent over, but the idea is to meet with the select board on their next meeting, which is 22nd. and get their blessing for essentially beta testing the road signs option. We talked about this a little bit in our meeting we had with Elaine, talking about mapping, and she was good with the idea.
Signs,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want people to join you or what do you want?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing, so thank you.
I'm, you know, Linda's gonna be giving the presentation. I'll be there, but I think, you know, anyone else who wants to show up is fine. I mean, as chair, I'm going to be saying, here's Linda. That will be it. I mean, I think also, I mentioned that Elaine, I told Elaine, if you could put in, you know, a brief update that allows the board members to ask us, you know, if we had any first impressions, what are we doing? How is it going, starting? It also allows us to raise the issue of, you know, we're trying to sort of get the town's reboot on Trails Committee overall. And with that, we're planning on holding listening sessions with various groups in town and just wanted to let them know. But I really think it's almost to that extent and not much more.
What time is that meeting, Tim?
They start at 6. You'd have to wait for the agenda to come out tomorrow to see what time
Yeah,
the signs are. It's gonna be brief. I can't imagine more than 10 minutes, I hope.
Yeah.
So it's up to you if you wanna watch on TV or come. I don't feel like this is a controversial thing where we need a lot of support, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
You might get questions on the branding part of it, the town,
Mhm.
from the select board.
You said the 22nd?
Yeah.
I think just on the offside, because it is new
Mhm.
and
Can't hurt.
people are, it couldn't hurt to show a unified force if other people, that might be helpful, if they have the time.
Have we, meaning you, have you, projected how many signs we need?
Yeah, so that was, somebody brought that up last time. I think Sean saw it. We have over 40 trails. Some of them could use more than one sign,
I was gonna say, so maybe 80
but
could fall.
I think what we want to do is, I think what we're gonna, this would be a recommendation that we spread it out over years. And we start with the most important ones and decide, is it really important to have a sign at all of these trails or not? Because that's a lot of signs, 80 signs. If we do 40 signs, it's probably gonna, I'm just making this up, not exactly, but I'm just gonna say rough estimate, $20,000 on the top of my head.
Mhm.
So 80 signs would be more like,
But it may be only 40 when you start looking at where roads intersect.
That's what I was gonna say, because you want to move this with the subject.
I was going to say, didn't you discuss too about posting like 4 or 5 in the beginning and get feedback and see how it was gonna
Right,
go?
right. That's the next part.
That's what the proposal
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
that's what we proposed, is we're doing 4, we're doing Center School, Center Trail, Hughes, and up at Fruit Street where Whitehall Brook is.
And just devil's advocate, why those 4 or 5?
So, a couple reasons, Fruit Street, and Hughes, no, Fruit Street and Center School maybe aren't as well known. Fruit Street you kind of see, but I don't know if you realize it's a trail. Center School, you definitely wouldn't know it. So for those 2 to test out, did this really bring visibility? The other 2, Center Trail and Hughes, Center Trail is obviously really popular. We don't need to get more people there. However, a lot of people will see that and maybe we can get feedback from people seeing it as well as views. So those are the reasons.
Yeah, I agree with those.
Yeah.
We're not opening up a dialogue about the sign or design, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We were gonna explain very briefly why we chose the design we did.
Yeah.
If they
'Cause-
push back, we'll have to.
'cause
Then
the
we're gonna
question
take
might
back
come-
on them to say,
The question that came up that we talked about at one point was the QR codes. I didn't know where we settled on that. Because if we had,
not on the roads.
Not on the road.
if we wanted to, okay, so some, maybe on the trail.
Yeah.
Then we did settle on it. Sounds good.
If he came, you'd know.
Well, if I wasn't getting well, we're on public record. I was getting a procedure. Well, I was in a hospital bed and I was like, I gotta dial into the trails meeting.
All righty, moving on. Moving on.
I
Ash
gotta make you
Street
feel
parking.
Patient list.
Yeah. Ash Street
Sorry,
parking.
that is-
Oh,
So John and I were out there Sunday,
Sunday.
looking at the parking, put together the submission application. Sort of it's been a back and forth. Have you seen the latest
I think it's great.
back to you?
Yeah.
Um,
I lobby back to you.
oh, did you?
Lob.
So so we are required as part of this to have a plan in 40 feet to the inch scale showing what's going on. So here, have you seen this?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I think it checks the box. Is it pretty? No.
I was trying to do that, Peter, but yeah.
Yeah, I've got to take it from one computer over to the other computer. And then even that one, I was trying to fill in some of that and it locked up the PDF. So I don't know, I had to turn that computer off on.
I think, but not that I'm advocating change, but I think the parking spot is a little bit further north.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it includes it, but it's a little bit north.
so this is actually a good example of collaboration between Peter and I. So we met at Ash Street and it's two parking spots, right? Two parking spots on the side of the road, which is on town property, right? So it's, nobody's private property is being touched at all. And the point of the matter is that you have some trees there because it's a scenic road. You need to take the trees out, so you need to go through some vetting process, right? And so when Peter and I met, he explained what the plan was. It makes sense, clean out the leaves, take out the trees, document the trees, what's the size of the trees, right? And then we measured it out, how much we're looking at, what was it?
51 inches. I said I broke it to 50, but 51 inches, yeah, 10 inches or 51 feet. 10 feet at one end.
Yeah.
It's still down to 6 feet at the other end.
So yes, it was, and so it's a quadrilateral, right? So 50 feet by, what was it, 6 feet by 10 feet? So that's the area. And then, so Peter drafted the proposal, found stuff in me. I went back and did some GIS screenshots and then kind of mapped out that both with a Google view where you can see the foliage and stuff like that, and then the regular street map where you can see the property line. So hopefully when the proposal's made, people understand clearly what's going on. It's not a huge project and it's actually quite simple. So I think it should be a slam dunk.
And is the thinking 3 cars?
Two on that side and you probably get one on the other. It's a small, really small area.
One on the other?
Other side of the driveway.
Other side of the driveway, yeah. The driveway there.
Yeah. it's one of them.
Yeah.
And Chuck had his hand.
Chuck? Comment?
Just that, if you do want a CAD drawing, scaled, I can certainly take what you've got and put it in that form.
Yeah, for this one, I think we can check the boxes. I think we're good. We'll
Good,
use your
okay.
skills when we have something where we really want
Fine.
more detail. We had one question for you. If you happen to get out there, there are 3 trees that need to come out. One is clearly the mulberry.
Yep.
There's also a choke cherry, which is about half dead. And then there's another one that's actually in the way, which I think is actually a tree of heaven. But I was having trouble deciding which.
That's poorly named. I think it's a tree of hell.
Yes, I know that, but yeah, I mentioned it. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but if you happen to be out there, you probably have a better chance of identifying than I would. So, but anyway, so
Yeah, I can swing by.
yeah, okay. But so the plan is to take that application and send it in. It goes to planning board, who does the scenic road hearing, and then also it has to go to Carrie Reed, who is the tree warden, they put the shade tree hearing.
Do we have to do anything because of the rock wall with the historic commission?
No.
Okay.
No, just,
That would come.
Is it a rock wall? It's a rock.
stone wall. It's a large boulder on top of the stone wall that needs to get shifted,
Not removed.
not removed.
I'm sorry, can you just say it goes to the planning board for?
Scenic road hearing.
Plus any stone wall stuff would.
Yeah, the stone wall is also covered under scenic road hearing. It goes to Carrie as the tree warden for a shade tree hearing, and that's a state requirement.
Jeff,
Yep.
just a quick question. When you guys were planning this for my time, was there any thought of, planning for additional cars? Was there room or not room, or was there the root decision for
There,
just two cars?
there is not additional room for cars on land that the town owns.
Hey, weren't you at the planning board when this came up?
Yes,
It predate, you remember
I
it?
know, but it was just before I went up.
Yeah,
It
there's
was a hot issue.
It was a hop, but there's just
Yeah.
literally, it's in a kind of a bend, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, and it's free and so.
Neighbors on all
Just like
sides
the-
didn't want the particular trees or that, but they just didn't want,
They thought they didn't with the
they
car.
weren't sure of how it's gonna work.
Yeah,
So, but
Which
so it's
is
not very big.
typical.
but that I think was for a different spot further down the road, closer to, that's down closer to.
Down by Joe's place?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conflated
There we
too.
go. We'll find out.
And then you'd have to break through the wall down there too,
Yeah,
to get to the.
yeah, you had to break through the wall and climb up. I mean, it just was problematic.
I'm sorry, so abutters know about this one and are.
They will, yeah.
Oh,
So they'll notify, as part of that, we give them the application, they do the notification. It's 100 feet, so it's basically, I think, probably 4 properties. You know, and we probably want to go out and just talk to them beforehand and let them know what we're doing. But the planning board has a responsibility for that. For giving the official notification, we probably want to do an informal notification too.
okay. And do we know when all this is taking place?
Again, we'll submit it to the planning board and they'll get together with Carrie and let us know what dates work for them.
Do we have to do the whole butters thing and mailings?
No, it's not like Concom, they take care of it. They're responsible.
I'm happy to help out with the notifications if you
That's
like.
long, so people understand what it looks like right now.
We're getting into his email, but that's a good picture.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Jack, any, potential realtors meeting?
I had a nice conversation with Chuck, and he said he would be glad to host it at his office,
Great.
invite people. Thought it was a good idea. I mentioned the fact that we're talking about a single town map, and he said, that would be great for realtors to have so they could show people where the trails are. So there's a natural community for it. So one thing that did occur to me, trees on the side of the road. One thing that occurred to me is, we probably need to at some point just caucus and decide what we're gonna present and how we want to present it.
Next meeting, absolutely. That's actually Jane's gonna talk about that a little bit. Where we're gonna
Okay.
come up as a discussion point.
Basically, it's, like, a stump speech, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, and they're listening sessions, but do we have questions things that we want to use to prompt
Yeah.
people?
And I think, I think we need to tell people some context.
Yes.
Before we ask them to comment on it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Alrighty, anything on DCR stewardship?
We had a meeting last week at Borderlands and it wasn't on the agenda. I'll find out when it's gonna be on the agenda. They're gonna do a presentation on the DCR Trail program.
When's this?
It'll be recorded. So you'll be able, but I thought for informational purposes, it might be nice for people to see what they do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
it was supposed to be, it's gonna be one of the upcoming meetings and whatever it's presented will get recorded and it'll be available on, if you go look for Stewardship Council, it'll have a log of the meeting, so.
Okay. Next 2 items actually are kind of linked. First one is the fitness equipment on Center Trail. Fitness equipment is, was acquired and will be installed using funds that came from the town manager's participatory budget from a couple of years ago. The money was obtained by the Trails Club, but as Trails Committee, we're kind of overseeing a little bit of that. I mean, even though they're sort of a private entity, kind of we're the town finger in the pie, if you will. As part of that, we'll be letting the school committee know about that. As far as planning for that, there's a scout who will be doing the work, and that's going to be hopefully starting during the school break. So next week, start the process of assembling, putting it in together.
How many stations are going to be there? It's just
Like 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and these are off the side of Center Trail. It's actually on another small piece of town-owned property, right where the middle school cross-country course connects into the Center Trail.
And how's the equipment gonna get over there? You need help?
That's why we have Eagle Scouts,
Okay.
and they'll assemble their troops. These will need to have a cement base, and getting cement and water there will be an issue. So I'm going to talk with Tim Persons, who's the school grounds person, and some other folks who maybe have equipment to make that happen, because, 80-pound bag of cement and small scouts probably is not a great combo. So, anyway, but that's moving forward.
When do you think this might happen?
Hopefully next week.
Oh,
And towards the end of next week, he wants to get started on it. So he's apparently got some scouts that are gonna be around.
Tim?
No, Rashid, I can't remember.
Oh, is that the?
That's the Eagle Scout, yeah.
candidate?
What kind of service is that going to have?
It's gonna be concrete holding a lot of it in place, but it'll just be the ground surface. Gonna work with Alex Danahy to make sure that there's grades and ways to get in there for both. But at this point, I'm thinking stone dust ultimately will be
Wondering,
between, but that's gonna be a little bit of.
pretty uneven ground.
Yes.
There's a lot of rocks around.
So I told Rashid, as far as divvying his force up, have the little kids with rakes clear that up just so we can see everything is, and then we can put, wood chips are cheap and easy. I need to talk to Alex and make sure that will work for the wheelchair. I suspect it won't, so then we'll want something like stone dust. So, but that is a little bit up to him.
Do you have some photos that you could show the committee, or does Rashid have it, or something?
There's no,
like that?
it's just a
It's just sort of,
Oh, I mean, of the equipment.
of the equipment.
Yeah. oh, the demo.
presentation of the school.
Yes, yeah.
The Peter sent out.
Saw that, but I didn't know if everyone else was included, so I was trying to,
Yeah, they were sent in, right?
Yeah, I sent it to the.
okay, so I just got a blank copy. I didn't know that everyone was included.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone did receive it.
Okay, the other piece of that is that we're proceeding with the trail going from the Loop Road to Chamberlain Street Extension. Chuck and I actually met with Beals and Thomas today down at their offices or in Southborough and kind of hashed out the final weeks. They didn't seem to have a problem with getting it done. They should be able to get it done within a month. Notice of intent, Chuck pretty much put together.
Say what they'll get done within a.
They will get the plans done within a month.
Are they going to be engineering plans?
Yes.
or-
Yeah.
I think that's important. And what are the details of the engineering plans that you've asked them to include?
They're just, they're standard trail type plans.
And how in depth? I was just wondering. Are they gonna be cross sections, cut cross sections and things like that?
They've got some of that detail. So but it's not quite to that level of detail, because for a woods trail, it's going to be a little bit on the ground as you go through it. So,
Okay, then that's, thank you.
it'll be sufficient to go out to bid though.
Are they doing the bridges too?
The bridge is a volunteer effort. We had that designed by a friend of Chuck's and who's an engineer. So it's been engineered. But that's part of the NOI package. There's just one
Okay,
This is on the north, the big bridge will be on the north side. That's the Stone Hills one. There's two smaller bridges on the south crossing and those, there's sort of temporary ones in right now, and they'll be finished. I think Chuck was working on getting that. The wood, I think he's almost finished cutting all the wood for that, and then it's a matter of hauling it over to them. I think the old Guy Express will be doing that. The all retired guys.
So I just want to say thank you for classifying that as a woods trail, because I think it makes a big difference.
So for both of those, I reached out to the school committee, because we gotten permission to do that trail probably 4 or 5 years ago. So different folks involved, on the school committee. So what I don't want is heavy equipment showing up and they're going, what the heck's going on? So reached out to them and they actually had time available this Thursday to get on their agenda. So that's the 4-slide piece I sent over to say, hey, here's what we're doing as far as this trail over at Elmwood. And by the way, you want to know about the fitness equipment going in because, your clients are going to be the primary users of that, I would think, the various running clubs, what I see, the school teams, I could see that being a good hangout spot. Good excuse. I'm going to go do push-ups, teacher. And if there's 5 of us hanging around while we do that, fine.
There's a trail near Elmwood. You mentioned Hopkins, didn't you?
I was confused by that too.
Back there. So what was, you mentioned,
He's answering.
Trail by Hopkins, yeah.
Okay.
you had mentioned that it was a time sensitive issue and I didn't, that caught me questioning what was.
Well, I would prefer the, so one of the questions that will come from the Conservation Commission, and we're looking at getting the plans finished up within a month, getting on their agenda. But one of the questions I foresee from them is, what does the school committee think about this? So I want to have said, oh, I just presented to the school committee, not, oh, I'm planning on presenting to the school committee at some point.
So it's an FYI.
Yes.
Is it what they think or have you informed them probably more?
I've informed them
Because
that this is
they have a right to
happening.
say, don't do it, or, I mean.
Right, they're not in position really to say
Right.
don't do it. They've
So
given the approval, but
creating awareness.
yes, but it's, it's a new group. I think
Yeah, they're new.
No, I think that's fair.
And I think also in terms of, given that it's new members and all that, I'd probably ask them to approve it. Again, it's just easier.
Why ask if they've already?
Yeah, I was, that's why I was,
Guys just looking for trouble, people.
I was shaking my head. If you keep it as an FYI and
Yeah.
here's what the school committee, your predecessors approved and.
Yeah.
It's coming in. We're keeping you up today.
Chuck?
This is, I'm sorry, stepping back, but in the discussion of the center or the Loop Road Chamberlain connection, my impression was that Jane was left thinking that is a quote woods trail. It is designed as a shared use path, meeting the grade standards for shared use path. It will be stone dust on the northern connection section. And there will be, we do have typical cross sections, and there will be a full grading plan for the trail.
Yeah. That's true.
Just going forward, that would be useful information for the committee to look at, I think, because it is valuable.
Yeah.
As we move forward and involve new and different people, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Share it with everyone.
Yeah, and Jane's point is that you're going to have documents.
Yes.
Does it make sense to upload them at some point to
Mhm.
the web or something like that, to a folder,
I think we're just gonna.
Yeah.
for the
No.
community to reference?
Yeah, I can send, that's a good point. I should probably have shared the drafts with you to this point.
Yeah, because it caught me a little bit off guard, but I appreciate it. That you can do that now.
Pe- Peter, to the chair, if I may, I think the drafts that we have from the engineers currently are somewhat misleading in the sense that their first cut on the grading went into the wetlands in a couple spots. That is being corrected. So it may make more sense to wait until we have the corrected versions from the engineers and to distribute to the commission. To
Yeah,
the
I was
committee,
thinking-
rather.
Right. Although I was thinking the level of detail, these plans show you the level of detail that we're talking about, and I think that's really, getting these Concom people out of the way. I think what you guys would be most interested, what I'm most interested in is, hey, what's the level of detail in the plans and where does it go generally? So, Chuck basically put the notice of intent together for us too, so that'll Concom background, they have they're a little more detail oriented than I am on this stuff, so.
I still think it's nice to have that information.
Yeah.
As a committee, because we're going to be asked these questions.
So, and then the other thing that went with that was, in talking to the school committee, there were basically 4 slides. The 4th slide was basically coming from our discussion of a listening session. And my thought was to do sort of an informal, hey, we've heard you guys have had concerns in the past with trail stuff. We know you have things, I would imagine there's things you like. Can we start the process of just sharing? And I just listed a few issues, trails that were out there and saying what were there to try and prompt some thoughts from them on that. So that was
And I appreciate that, but I also think at the same time, this committee should have a chance to talk about some of those other spur trails or whatever you want to call it, potential spine trail or whatever it might be. So the whole committee could, but been very involved in other stuff. And it would be interesting to see how that evolves. Particularly, you mentioned the Center Trail to EMC. Well, I know the Open Trails Trail has invested a lot of money in having those engineering studies already prepared, and that might be interesting information. Maybe you don't want to duplicate it. Maybe this committee wants to put other set eyes on it. And another one that you mentioned was the EMC to Marathon School. Again, a lot of that engineering has already been done. And it would be interesting for some of the committees to hear actually the level of detail, as it's not engineered for a woods trail type of a thing. It's pre-engineered for more of a spine trail. That's not saying that this committee wants to go that way. It's just sharing of archived information that we already have and probably don't want to duplicate
Yeah,
in costs.
through the chair. Yeah, so if maybe I'm misunderstanding Peter, you can help clarify. I thought you were not going to them and engaging in a discussion around these.
correct.
You're just mentioning items that have been researched. And then for future, more formal, and this goes back to Jack's point, when we agree what questions we have, how we engage school committee and other, was I correct in understanding?
Yes, my
Again,
feeling
this is
was,
like an FYI, Dick. It's not a, let's.
yeah, it's not, let's discuss this in detail. It's like, for example, I heard at one point there was the trail was, the Upper Charles Trail was going to go around the Marathon School. And then I heard that the school committee didn't want that. Okay, you are a new school committee. We're a new committee. We're doing a listening session. What are your thoughts on, where are your thoughts today on trails near the school? What are your thoughts today? I am a proponent of trails in the woods for the running teams as a safety measure. What are you as school committee members' thoughts on something like
Are
that?
you planning to do that?
It's really, it's a different level. It's not getting into the
Correct.
details.
However, I think that if you are the chair, you're presenting a holistic, something like that, I would I know you're presenting as a runner, but not everybody here is looking for a runner's point of view. And it could be that the committee going forward wants to have other input as to what some of the other art needs might be for the community in that area. I don't want to get into the weeds at all, but I'll just throw this one small thing out as an example. In back of EMC, the town just spent, I think, was over $100,000 for a new skateboard park. And now if we're going to go in there with stone dust, and that excludes the potential of skateboarders within the area being able to access that. So it would be an interesting conversation that this committee could have going forward. That's all that's where I'm coming from. It's not just about runners, it's not just about cyclists, it's about, people with all kinds of different abilities for the whole town.
Right. Again, the purpose of this initial meeting was really more of an informal listening. Here's some prompts.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think we should flag that. That's a really good point, Jane. Maybe it is too detailed for this, but we should remember that. What about the whole connectivity and having trails for kids to get to school?
Right.
It's like that's a pretty
another-
big
Well,
topic.
again, that's what we'd
Highlight.
like them to give us. Yeah.
Beat this to death, but, so my assumption is you would tell them at a later date, we'd like to sit down and have a more complete conversation.
Right.
Okay, that,
Yeah.
agree, that makes
And,
sense.
and
Because we don't want it to be piecemeal, or
Right.
that we don't want to, we want
Right.
to approach with the context.
well,
My only concern is that you could go start it down a road, whenever you meet with them, that requires more comprehensive response and
Yeah.
there's some, sort of premature conclusion about something. That's all.
And I think that's where I was coming from too. We want to project ourselves as a whole unified committee as much as possible, not just from one person.
So I think keeping it at, I know this is an agenda item, so we're just discussing. But, I tend to agree, if it's an awareness that we have a new trails committee, we're here, here's some things that have been evaluated in the past. And if they wanted to raise hot topics to seed or follow,
right.
I'm comfortable with that. But if it ends up being a working session, to Jack's point, I think you very eloquently said it, is like, if you're not prepared to give the depth of an answer or, whatever, they could be, make decisions and draw conclusions, which would then block us off from something we may want to approach them with later on. So,
So you're still
Okay.
planning going before the school committee tomorrow?
It's off for tomorrow, but it's on for May 1st.
Okay.
So, yeah, and my feeling is that, again, it's an informal, as we're coming up with what we want to have in these listening sessions, I see this as a chance to get some input from a group. And yeah, but to your point, make sure that nothing's set in stone. We'll be back to you with a more formal plan, but we kind of wanted to hear initially any thoughts, concerns that you have, because those are things that, hopefully we don't forget as we come up with stuff, but I think it's worth asking now.
maybe I missed it. I didn't realize that it wasn't tomorrow.
It got changed.
I
to-
would be willing to donate time as a group just to have that one topic and maybe get a little bit more productivity out of it. And have a session of maybe we grant a list of guiding questions that they should think about or something to prep them a little bit more. If people would be willing to get together before May 1st, but I don't want.
How much time do you have on your agenda? Because those other two topics will take up.
I have a half hour, so yeah, I was, again, I put that in here as sort of a informal, can we start this process of listening sessions?
Yeah.
With them.
So I'm going to try to summarize. I'm going to say what I think I heard, but it's definitely going to be biased towards what I think I heard that I liked. So I'm just going to say that right up front. So what I heard is we want to introduce the concept that we're going to come back at a later time for a listening session. And we would like to use the time on the 1st to get them to seed some of the topics for a future session. Is that a good summary of?
I think so.
And I also kind of propose that if the committee feels like we can be a little bit more productive, see them a little bit more than just what we have in the slide, that we get together and agree on, 3 or 4 either guiding questions or whatever, not go deep dive and, but just somehow lay out a little bit more of a framework that would help a follow-on discussion.
We don't have another meeting scheduled
I know.
before then, so.
That's why I'm proposing a special meeting.
What's that?
I was proposing a special, just single focus get together, but I know
I would be willing to do that if anyone had, I'll say.
Fine, it's fine with me, so.
Can we allow a subgroup or some people to just meet? And do all of
Yes, we can. However, we still have to post it as like a working group session.
I thought only if it was, a permanent working group. Like if this is just a one-time.
Anytime members get together, 2 or more, or is it 3 or more? We could have to clarify that. It's also
So I've
the area.
heard that. I've read all the rules a million
Yeah.
times and that is not in there. So
Well,
if
if you
you
ask-
have a quorum, you have to. If you don't have a quorum and it's not a standing working group, you don't have to. It may be different.
Yeah, you're not making a decision.
What's that?
You're not making
And
any.
you're not making a decision. Now, in this case, you would be probably making a
Right.
decision, but I think we'd be allowed to say we cede that.
we can vote as a group to empower that subgroup to
Right.
make the decision.
And I wouldn't call it a subgroup, I just call
Or working group.
Working
it,
group.
well, even
whatever.
just it's a meeting for one night. It's for one thing. Elected committees are different. They have different rules. We're not elected people. So it doesn't- I don't, no, go look it up. It's not, you don't have to do that.
But anyway, if you want to set a date.
Well, we already talked about doing a stump speech for the Realtor meeting, right? Wouldn't that be
Well, I
the
think a
same?
more general sort of, what we're gonna say to people when we go talk to them.
Why is this gonna be different than the school committee?
I don't think it is.
Right, so yeah, so it's a separate.
Keeps bundling them together, right?
You're just gifting me an argument that I haven't made.
Yeah. So what dates, times would work for folks?
Next week.
Next week, next Wednesday?
Which is,
School vacation week, but I don't think that matters for most of us.
Can I just raise one more question? So we started out originally with a listening session is you just listen. We're here, 1 minute, here's what we do, here's what we want to do. Now we listen. Now we're talking about seeding topics. Is that a listening session? Is that what we want to do? I don't know.
I think you're
I'm just
narrowing the focus of what I'm hearing from Scott is that you don't want them all over the place, but you want to
Yeah.
do 2 or 3 things specifically to.
A little bit of background, to Jack's point, a little bit of background.
Yep.
Again, we don't want to over-engineer this because we could talk for 500 hours and we get to not, we just want to, if it's a one slide or whatever we decide, that's what I'm talking about seating. A little bit of context for them, because there's new members, we're a new group. Just somehow
I'm
just
sorry,
framing it up.
background and seeding don't sound the same.
What's that?
Background and seeding with a few topics do not sound the same to me. They sound like two different things.
They are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just
Starting with the background.
questioning whether seeding with topics is actually,
Questions, yeah. Like what types of questions or things we'd like them to think about, not saying, do you want to trail around the school? We're saying, where would you prefer trail? How would you define connectivity? I'm making this up and biasing you, but those are the types of things that I like consider.
Mhm.
All right, so we're heading down the path
Yeah,
of having
sorry.
a discussion. So why don't we,
Handle it at the meeting.
yeah,
When is that, what time is that meeting on the 16th?
it's on the first.
2030 cent.
on the
21st,
No, you said we're gonna meet on Wednesday, next Wednesday.
next Wednesday,
which is
which is
not the 16th, the
23rd.
23rd.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jesus.
today being 16th.
You want to-
We could hold it at the same time, 7 o'clock. I'll get a room. When you're doing.
Are you good?
We're good.
You look puzzled.
Back and forth.
Yes.
Yes. To ultimately talk about things, but we really shouldn't be talking about until we talk about them.
Okay, and this is at 7 o'clock on the 23rd.
7 o'clock. April 23rd. We'll say 7 to 8. Let's not give ourselves extra time.
When's the meeting with the Realtor?
That has not been set up.
So, no, has a conversation.
Right. So the school committee is May first.
You know, I mean, it strikes me as there's a couple different conversations here that we need to have. One is with everybody, people, but with the school committee, they have trails on their property. I would, one thing I'd like to, do they have a strategy for kids walking to school or biking to school? Because Senate Trail and the trail, no,
No, I don't.
Senate Trail and the trail that goes to Chamberlain Street are heavily used by kids getting to school. Because I walk it every morning and I see them.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it might, so that's, I think more, in some ways, that's more of a discussion about, you know, how they think trails fit in with their mission and.
Right.
And then what the real is is this different thing, how do they perceive trails? How do they, are trails good for their marketing? How do the whole thing? So they're very specific groups compared to a general class of people.
I think you just kicked off the next meeting.
Yeah. I think the next meeting is going to have a, you know, realtor specific and a school
Yeah,
specific.
and then, because they're very different classes.
So make sure you.
Or I would say geared towards different audiences, but I
Right,
think
right.
the overarching message is going to be very similar.
Yeah.
And then you have geared messaging per group.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, we're just using two examples. I also imagine all these other committees and groups that we're going to be going in front of, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or the Trails Club, et cetera. You're going to have a catered conversation for those, but the overarching message is the same.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know, the big message is we're new and we'd like to hear, right?
Right.
We're trying to get a new beginning here.
You okay, Ken?
Yeah.
You caught up?
I'm not sure what I missed. I thought I was gone for a long time because.
Yeah, you got to sign 4 tasks while you were gone, but that's okay.
It seemed like it was going on forever, but then it was still the same stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to know.
All right, so moving on. Update on actions by other boards, committees, and trail center groups. The only thing new is from the Trails Club, they're continuing to do work on the Kalala parcel and working towards getting ultimately a trail in there. They did another work day. I think they're planning on yet another work day in there for May. To do more clearing. They got the official Concom approval. All of this is away from houses, but we're, you know, getting towards the point where we're gonna want to have a formal abutters notice to the Teresa Road neighborhood. You know, basically a larger abutters notice at that point.
Are you done with that?
I have more to talk about on, well related to
Okay, go ahead.
from the Trails Club. So we're planning to do a Trails Celebration Day in June. I think it's the last weekend. No, maybe it's near the end of June. The Trails Club is going to put it on. It's the 20th anniversary of the club this year. So that's one of the special events. So it'll be at Hughes, lots of activities, just inviting people to come find out about trails. So,
So it's the end of June.
yeah, I can't remember off the top.
Is it in our notes? I see.
No, but I can add it.
Okay, if I may, so there are a couple other things just to connect some dots here. So Brian Colella, who's on the historical commission with me, is working through a project for signage. Historical signage, you guys are familiar with that, because I know he's, both you guys, I suggest. And he's gone to other committees. So I don't know if they'll be in by June, but it'd be pretty amazing. And also, I don't know where it's landed, but was discussion about a sign about slavery, the slaves who lived in Hopkinton. I believe that might have ended up being back in the comment. Or is it going to be down in Hughes?
They kicked it back to the select board for them to make a final
Okay.
decision.
So just FYI, not that, you know, we're going to change the date or anything, but it'd be great if at least the historical signage that Brian's been working on, he's doing a great job on that, would be there. So I'll bring that back to the historical commission to see if we can try to time it. And would you like anything, we talked about this last time with the historical commission to do it as a sort of a group. Would you like the historical commission to do some sponsorship in any way? Sorry.
Oh, is it not looking?
It's historically relevant. It's absolutely, that's why we're putting this goes to signage. It's where the meeting,
There must be some.
Haven Road Post Office area, but the meeting house was there.
The bench and slide.
We've got it at the next meeting. You do have- I just kind of wanted to flag that there's the date. and the-
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could put them next to each other, that'd be great.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, James, sorry.
Open Space Preservation Commission they were talking specifically about a sign. And they're still debating this, and I advised them to reach out to this committee, the vault and the Trails Club. If they would, they're suggesting they just make us a sign like 12 by 8 that says no motorized vehicles. So that's going to come before the committee and
who's proposing?
Open Space Preservation Commission for all on the properties that they will receive.
Mhm. So
And
you get that, what you're talking.
yeah, and they're looking for to discourage ATVs.
So I want to make a comment that there are probably other things that belong on a sign. And one thing I hate is when you go to the start of a trail and there's 16 different signs. Might be really good to try to get them on one sign.
I think that's a good conversation. That's why I suggested that we have like a little summit meeting about.
Yeah, well, that's, again, that's why I wanted to have an agenda. And
Yeah.
one of the things I don't like about, on Center Trail, there's one of the signs that, no, 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 no.
Right.
Just, it's not welcoming. That's your first message is a lot of no. And while it's important to, let people know what they can and can't do, there's ways, I think, to do that where it's not quite as, no.
What's the origin of that sign? Well,
Uh,
Trails Club, wasn't it? That first came up?
Paul, Dave Goldman. That was the one on Center Trail and all we know signs. Yeah, that was a Dave Goldman special. Said no biking, even though there is biking allowed. So you've got no biking and then you've got a bike sign.
the troubling thing is, there's someone in the morning that's driving an electric bike with big wheels, and it's a young kid, and he's tearing the trail up. You'll see it. He's actually doing damage.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I see him
And I
every
think that's a
morning.
big topic of conversation that
Mhm, the whole e-bike. Alrighty, townwide trail map. Summary of meeting with town manager and discussion. One of you two? To
Have
start.
some items within that. He wrote back to me. I said, oh, what were we gonna cover in this? Do you happen to have that?
Well, a few things. One was Sean talking about all trails because he went to the Zoom meeting. So a synopsis of the positives. Sure. Of that. And then the other topics was that ultimately Elaine wanted a list of the kind of things we wanted.
In a map.
Yeah, on a map, and then sort of the general committee's thoughts on the town. All, what base we want. I assume we want to use what the town's using on their base, but.
And she said if we did that, then she would bring it to the GIS people.
Right.
I think we should also, when we bring her that list, I think we should offer that we would be glad to accompany her when she does that, because I'd like to see that whole
Mhm.
interaction, so I would volunteer for that, but we need to make a list.
Right.
Of what we'd like to see.
Yeah, so anyway, all trails.
So Peter asked me to prepare something. I didn't have the time to do that. I think the next meeting, perhaps I'll be able to. But, is everybody familiar with the app All Trails?
I've seen it, yeah, but it's not one that I use.
Okay, all right, but you're familiar with it. And then for those folks who have downloaded and used it, and have they used it, I should say, okay. And so All Trails and this, Trails, it's not a committee, it was a Trails group, this woman spokesperson for North Carolina, a large section of the state. And it's kind of like the north central, maybe west section. Probably the size of maybe New England, just to give you guys a scope of the size on which this person was represented. Thousands of trails, I can imagine, thousands of users or tens of thousands of users easily, right? And the person from All Trails was there and they were talking about this program that All Trails has. That says you don't have to pay for it. Like you can maybe download it, you can pay for it or not. It's up to you. You get special availability on All Trails. If you pay for it, you can download the maps and take it with you, etc. However, if you don't pay for it, anybody uses it, you can log your trips on it, right? And so that data goes to All Trails. What this program does with nonprofits, or in our case, a government agency or government committee, is you can get access to that data. Right. So, and the data will allow you to see like what they're calling a heat map on, say you have a trail that does a circle and you notice that some people are kind of bypassing the circle.
Mhm.
Like, why is that? Well, because the trail's flooded would be an example. Right. And you would see that the heat map and where people are doing that cut through, or a tree is down or something along those lines. Or the alternative, there is no heat map. Nobody's using the trail.
Everybody's using All Trails to load up.
Well, let's
That's
just,
okay.
well, okay. No, you can't force everybody to download the app. Right. But what you can't go out and tell people and ask them, give me feedback from the trail. You know what I mean? Here you have an app where you're more likely to get more feedback on that app than you are asking people. And that's the point. And so it doesn't cost the nonprofit or the government agency anything to do this. One of the questions I've had during the Zoom meeting was, what if the trail went on private property? Because anybody can log a trail on all trails, right? You can literally, right? And I think it was Dale Danahy that said it to you. He says, listen, why are there trails on all trails in my yard or my property? She said. And because anybody can log a trail. If you have this agreement with All Trails, you can tell them that's on private property, take it down. And so they can wipe that trail off the app.
Yeah, the things that I found intriguing are, you can get the heat map, which gives you, yes, imperfectly, but some idea of use.
Yeah, I use Trailsforks and it has a very similar feature to that.
Mhm.
It has the public trails. You can select what base map you want to use as well. So you can use like the standard Trailforks map, but you can also use OpenStreetMap. You can use Google Satellite, but it also has a heat map where you can see trails. You can see people's paths in areas where there are no trails. You say, oh, there must be a trail there, but it's not on the map.
This is cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
That thing.
So I guess the question to the group then is, one of the things we want to try and get a handle on is how many people are using trails. And it sounds to me like, there's a way to collect data from all these apps.
Well, with this agreement, you can get the data from All Trails.
Right.
I can see that.
Yes.
Say what an agreement is, what you mean by.
I don't know. I have to look
So
into it.
they said you have to sign an agreement.
Nope, didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
You just, I don't know if they say, you fill out this form and it says, what group are you with?
And then you can get the.
I don't know if it's an agreement. I'm not sure. I don't know how it works, honestly. I didn't go that far.
Do they have a criteria on who they make changes for?
They alluded to like nonprofits or government groups or something like that, who are responsible for maintaining trails.
So the benefit to All Trails of them is they get access.
Right.
They can then market,
Yeah.
Right.
right, these additional trails.
And they get feedback.
to the people that sign up. Yes.
Well, the benefit to All Trails is it would advocate for more users to potentially go buy the app.
Right. Right. They want the people that pay first.
That's right. That's what their interest is. Granted, they say by helping, say, the Hopkinton Trails Committee, it would entice more users, right? And doing something good for nonprofits or government agencies, get people out of the trails, right? So you get the good with also, good with the business.
Yeah. Are there ads on there?
I have not seen ads.
I have it, I just opened it, right? So what they do is, and I didn't know they changed this, because I haven't used it in a while, because it doesn't have any of our trails in town, zero, has zero. Has the marathon trail, well, it has the marathon radio, I'm right here. We could talk, maybe I missed one, I scanned it, but it's a commercial model where if you want extra features, you buy the app and you can cancel anytime. So I haven't seen the advertisements, but for where I was gonna go, and not, that I didn't mean to be contentious, sorry, but I didn't see it, like I'm looking at the green dots and they're kind of pretty far away. But at any rate, maybe we're in the fringes of town, from where we are.
Yeah, so, right. That's exactly the point, is those green dots are ones that have already been blessed by All Trails.
And
And
so
so if we sign on and we
Exactly.
say, these are the trails. you're
that's exactly
blessing,"
where I was gonna
you
go.
get more green.
That's where I was gonna go. So by us going on, this, I was agreeing with you, by the way, ultimately, by saying by us at least being, gaining visibility with All Trails, then we would get our trails in an app that Clear Trail users use. So that's, if we get nothing else, which I like the feature of the, the path or burn rates or heat maps or whatever, but if nothing else, one of the reasons why I stopped using this is I use this when I go to other cities, because we don't have them. Not here. And plus I have the other map.
Correct.
Looks like a bunch of darn kids. Everyone down there is on their phone.
Yeah, no, I got Trail Forks, on here.
And the other question,
Is Center Trail on there?
good question.
Yeah.
Sure, there's no cost.
No cost to us. And so my point tonight is to drop, to plant the seed and go out and gather more information. I may fill out that form and have start and start having a conversation with All Trails to figure out what's involved. Linda, to your point, I had the same question. Do I have to sign an agreement or do we have to sign an agreement? I don't know. Getting these types of information, which and really identify what are the benefits.
Yeah,
How would this interact with the town trails map?
that's a question.
We'll come to that, I think.
But yeah, I think we're hoping it would, right? Well, but
Yeah.
it may not, but it may be the sort of thing, because the town already has OpenStreetMap tied into there. So that's probably where we want to go. But having said that, in our website, where we're directing people to trails, we may be able to point them to something like All Trails. So that when this is your handheld for going out.
At a minimum, sorry if I'm being way too repetitive, but I really want to say, at a minimum, we need to get word out about our trails. This is clearly a targeted audience of trail users that go into this and don't see anything. We should get our trails in here.
Right.
At a minimum. If nothing else.
So I thought it was kind of a no-brainer. I don't think we should move forward without all of us on the same page.
What's a no-brainer to get our info?
Well, to sign up with All Trails and have them update the trails, and get more green dots and.
So I raised my hand that it's a no-brainer, but I just want to step back to, at one point you said we were going to try to come up with priorities and goals for the year. So somewhere we have to take all these things we keep bringing up at these meetings we want to do and have that session where we sort of prioritize and see, just because there's so much could work on all the time. And that might be a good one, but we should be conscious of
Yeah.
that.
Priority is not a bad topic for next meeting, actually, because there's other stuff. So one of the things sort of on the edge of, from our meeting with Elaine was, I asked her about budget. We know how much budget we have for fiscal year 2026, is it?
Let's pause. How did we get on this topic? I'm sorry. I'm just like,
This is a total sidebar, because we're talking about prioritizing trail maps. So that's how the key word here is priority, but one of the things I want to think about prioritizing, and again, this is for an agenda item for next meeting, is that the budget that's available to us through June 30th is the combined residual funds for TCMC and UCTC, which is probably roughly 60K. So if something comes out of this that we want to buy, or not out of this, but out of our next meeting, be thinking about stuff we might want to do, we have to move quickly, but there's, we don't want to spend money just to spend money, but if there's high priority things that we want to get done, and that's what the priority meeting that's why we're having the priority meeting at our May meeting, is that, one of the priorities would be things that we want to spend money on and prioritizing that. Anyway, sidebar, back to trail mapping. So the other thing Elaine talked about, again, was using the OpenStreetMap, but going to the GIS folks. and working through them to get something up. Go ahead.
So, in addition to All Trails and Trail Forks, there's other ones like Gaia. Google Maps is now doing trails. We had that guy come and tell us. Some of us use just OpenStreetMaps. There's probably a couple other apps. The other thing is, if we're doing a townwide map and we only own some of the trails in town, Haltz already has a map for Halt trails. DCR has maps for DCR trails, Sudbury Valley Trustees for theirs, Audubon for theirs. When we talk about having townwide OSM-based mapping, I don't understand if we're going to be redoing what those other, we're trying to provide a service for all trails in town. Not all trails, but all
Understood.
trails in town. But we don't own all those trails and we don't want to be having to update those maps when Halt makes a change or Sudbury Valley or Audubon does. So to me, that's like a huge issue with this whole thing of what we want for our maps. I don't have an answer. I just have a big question.
Right. I think at the end of the day, we're gonna have to have pick a date, June 2025, townwide trail map that we can print out, large scale, throw up on the wall that is certified by us as showing all the publicly available trails. And that will include DCR trails and trails on Halt land, if you get to the right size. That's so.
Get them though.
They're all on OpenStreetMap and on the town website,
Not
right?
necessarily up to date for DCR.
It's gonna be, we're gonna have to make some choices and sort of go, okay, here is, as complete as possible. And that will be something that we will kind of bless every 6 months or something. So almost like a hard copy PDF version map. In addition, then we've got all these much more active apps out there. And, that interaction of what actually is usable, I think is going to be much more fluid. But I think what we've had trouble with is kind of figuring out how we get that base map, if you will. Thoughts?
What's the purpose of the base map? Who's the user? How are they gonna use it?
To find, sort of print that out and sort of, generally where you can go look for trails in town. So somebody comes along, they see this trail sign on the center trail and we're hoping to get out there. Oh, Hopkinton has trails in town. Gee, well, I can go to All Trails or I can go to the town website. Oh, here's the town website. Oh, here's a PDF map and I can print it up and print out the piece I want to use. Or the other approach is we have a link to All Trails or to OpenStreetMap and they go there.
Chamber of Commerce may want to sponsor the business.
Well, sorry. Perfect. So the purpose is somebody's on a trail, they want access to information to know about other trails, right?
Yep.
They don't necessarily need a map, they just need to know where to go, right? And so does that map need to be granular? Like literally, do you have to be able to download the actual trail from the town website or from that first landing page?
Well, I think you would want to at least print it out, like do a screenshot and print it out. Or
You have to download it.
Well, yes, but my point here, there is Linda's that makes a valid point, right? And let's just say it was the Hopkinton State Park, right? And so, and you're saying, well, listen, as of June 30th, XX, that's how it is. So in December, they change a trail. So somebody comes to our website, they go to that landing page, they download the wrong map because Hopkinton State Park changed the route, right?
Surely you just want a link to the state park from our web.
Well, I'm not,
I'm gonna want to download a map for the whole
Sounds
town.
like it's a discussion for a whole meeting.
I'm asking the purpose, like,
Yeah, 30 minutes allocated for it.
Yeah.
do we really want to be in the job of maintaining the trail maps per se? Because I think Linda's point is spot on. I think that there's a way too many out there.
The key to that is how much change is there.
Oh.
If there's a modest amount of change, yeah. If it changes every 15 minutes, no. No, but I'm saying that's the key. How much work is it?
I don't.
But I do think,
I mean, unless we commit to, we're gonna maintain a urban street map and keep it up to date. We're not necessarily maintaining, we're just selecting that what we want to print out and show is here's all the maps in town.
Right, we want to have a map, or we want to have a map that someone can go to, so, and know that the trails they see on the map are going to be publicly usable. They're not going across private property, and all trails can take out some, but say you take it out of all trails and somebody else is using, Trail Forks, and, oh, we haven't gotten to that one, and oh, here's another app.
Understood.
On the town website, we ought to be able to say, you go here, and to the best of our ability, and to Jack's point, I don't think that things change with regard to trails all that quickly. Here it is.
All right, so, but I'm thinking, all right, so Linda named 5 organizations that are maintaining trail maps.
Yeah.
Can we leverage that?
Yeah. And
So we can, but the problem is Halt maintains their trails on their own thing.
Okay,
It's based on OSM. Chuck's raising his hand. DCR just has paper PDF maps, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Audubon, I think just paper PDFs, but there's only one Audubon in town. There's a few Sudbury Valley trustees. I think those are paper PDFs. Only Halt really has the interactive, nice mapping system. And then our trails that we own are right now just PDFs for the ones we do have. So, I mean, you could take OSM and maybe like create a special version of it that just at least shows the different trails, but doesn't try to make them be all perfect.
right, and OpenStreetMap, for example, I'm pretty sure I was trying to look at it for Legacy North and the farm roads that are up there, which are great running and hiking trails. They're not there. So it's like, okay, this is a place that people could be walking right now that's just unknown. So, we would need to upgrade, we gotta upgrade something to get these on. So it's,
so here's,
hold on a second, let's just, if you don't mind, Chuck, go ahead quickly, please.
I'm sympathetic with Linda's concern. I think an approach would be to, on the town's trails website, have a key map such as the Trails Club and Halt have, which, but it would identify more including the town parcels and things like Legacy North and South. And then on that website, have trail maps as are now available for town-owned land where there is not a Halt or state or Audubon map available. It would be minimize the amount that the town would have to maintain. It seems to me that the OpenStreetMap approach, where to get a town-wide picture, is more useful for the committee to look at potential big picture linkages, connections. But when somebody's looking for a hike, a key map is sufficient.
Yep.
what's a key map?
I saw,
Area specific.
yes. So I just looked at Southborough, not that they're like, I'm not saying they aren't the gold standard, but what Southborough does is they have a list of all trails, and they say, the following is a list of trails that we don't maintain that exist in town, and links out to DCR and others. Then here's the ones we maintain. For each of them, they have a write-up describing the trail, like a lot of trail books you guys would probably have seen,
Yeah.
and then a PDF demo. So I know it's not a trail map.
For website versus map, and
Right.
while website is one use of map, are there other uses for maps than the website? Like, it's kind of good for us to see all the trails in town for planning purposes,
I
right?
agree. I'm just saying like, because we were on some topic of use and navigation and things like that. I think that's where you can look at the PDF and get it on your phone and follow it. But where Peter was,
Talk about website.
yeah, but going back to the map overarching topic here, the kickoff, going back to Peter's point, I don't know if you're saying this or I heard it this way, but I like the sort of annual holistic snapshot concept. Once a year with a disclaimer, things could change. So people have, like I said, you had to walk over a cliff.
Right. Yeah,
But
and to Chuck's point, I think that has a value for us in
Yeah.
saying, okay, are the trails all located in one area?
Yeah.
I mean, Sean and I were talking Sunday, and he made, I think, a real good point, which is like, where do we want to be focusing trail work? Well, we want to be focusing trail work where the people are. So downtown area and then extending out from there. Having said that, if there's no trails over in some part of town, boy, and there's open land, boy, we ought to make sure we're working on that. And that whole town-wide map allows us to do that. But then from a user point of view, that, sort of area-specific trail map becomes much more valuable than some big map.
so there's sort of, you're not going to carry around a massive
Right.
map of all times.
But so,
I think I'll go here today.
yeah, so then the map for the website is sort of that holistic, but then also linkages. And maybe it does become something like Halt has a good system of trail maps, so we don't need to do those. We just, sort of what you were talking about where
It's like a hub and
here's where you, here's where you link. Any other thoughts on map specific, or should we,
Just the high level to elaborate a little bit on what Peter and I talked about was one of the things that resonated me with Gary Trendle's presentation was the 2 mile loop. Right? He says that's what people were interested in.
I raised this with Peter. Nowhere in the presentation did it say that respondents mentioned loops, even though that was the conclusion. And I'm personally concerned about that conclusion.
So it was a
given
2 mile, it could have been an out and back.
Well, he said loops, but I had asked if you could follow up because nowhere did the data say loop.
Right.
right,
I think that was his own personal conclusion.
And
I think
I'm
it was 3
nervous
to 4.
about using that
Oh, 3 to 4
personal
miles.
accused.
Oh, thank you, Jane.
What's that?
I'm making numbers up. Jane, correct.
no,
me.
it
to
was
4.
like 1 to 4 or 2 to 4.
2
yeah,
to 4
no.
was his conclusion, but he used the word loops, whereas in the conclusion, but that was nowhere in the data.
Less than 5 mile trail. Less than 5 mile trail,
Yeah.
out and back loop.
Just nervous about using the loop.
13.
Right, and he did not get back to me, but he was overseas for his birthday, so I think it's.
So the way I
Not surprised.
So what I was thinking about is that, not the majority of folks in town, but there's a greater concentration of downtown, especially with the schools. And you got parking by the schools, and we have trails by the schools. And can we focus on doing the less than 5 mile trails, loops, out and backs from the schools and then out, and just make that map? And say, oh, if I was at EMC and I wanted to go to Hopkins, how would I do it and do it in 3 miles? Essentially is what you're doing. Well, just cross the street, you're doing less than a half mile, right? But if you do this right, if you go down to Center School, loop back, you can go back out there.
I think where Gary was coming from was kind of an oval, as your main one, but then there's circles off of that. And then you can kind of like, to Sean's point, if you want to connect, you might have to do a little bit of this route and it might be some odd miles, but you're always there's always a loop that's going to bring you back to where you started, but also get you where you want to go if you want to go to a single.
So can I go back to the agenda? I don't know, but I think we'd be here. So is there any ask here? I know it was an update, but is there a future agenda item where we actually entertain maybe what you suggested, Peter, which is this sort of holistic snapshot of what Sean suggested, which is, starting with a focused area? Is there something in the future for us? Like what's the next step for this?
So the next step is Elaine has said we can work with the GIS people and she'll help facilitate that. So kind of kicking stuff around with all trails, and this is, what do we want to do for that? I mean, I thought what you raised sounds like a good way to go, is we want some sort of big snapshot map. So we can bring that to GIS and say, hey, what we want is, you know, this big map that generally shows where the trails are throughout town. You know, they should be able to do that with, you know, they should be able to print out something with all trails that we can take, put on the table here and go, oh, hey, All Trails doesn't have trails here, and I know there are trails here. So, you know, that's something we can.
Feedback sessions for everybody.
Right, and then go, you know, and then we can bring that back to get that. So we have that big map sort of as up to date as we can have it for a certain time. In addition to that, what I would say is kind of what you were talking about is this, you know, here's other people who have maps and links on the website.
Website discussion for that.
Right, yes.
That's what it's about.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, and to go back to what Elaine said, so we need to get this down on paper, what we want to see. And then my impression was she said she was going to facilitate it and talk to them. And I mean,
that's where I think we go sit.
I think what we need to do is figure out what their response is and proceed.
Mhm.
I mean, it's my view, it's their job and they should do it and it's important to the town.
Right, but you know, I guess we need to tell them what we want them to do. Having this discussion would not be particularly helpful for them.
No, exactly. So
So-
we need to nail it down at some point.
Right, exactly. And, you know, the question is, you know, in the next 5 minutes, can we do that with this? Or do we want to have another session?
Can we get a map as is today?
No.
Oh.
That, I don't.
I don't know why we couldn't.
Okay, so maybe that's the first ask is go to Elaine and say, have the GIS people print out an all trails map in a size that shows us all the trails that, or not all trails.
I thought it was
Open street map.
open street maps.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, so print out what the town map has in terms of trails.
Okay, sounds good. And our expectation is what, do we might need to mark it up because there might be.
Correct.
That's what I'm talking
Mark it up and make.
about. I just don't know how up to date it is.
Yeah, right, and that's what we want to know.
We got some tracks that.
Yep.
Can I just say, when we say print out, like, what are we talking? How big? I mean, it's.
Gotta be big. Otherwise, it's engineering drawing size, so. Right?
Not quite.
Will you be-
Anyone that engineer know what size it's being 5 foot at least.
That's the size of this table.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure you're gonna be able to have the details.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you might see trails on your phone. That's a tiny little screen.
Can I make a proposal that I start
Yeah.
with a PDF so we can zoom in areas and take it as maybe a section for meetings as we go or something? I don't know. I just starting with one print up. I don't know. It could be
Yeah.
the granularity and the
Well,
cost.
I mean, one of the things we can do is ask them and say, look, you know, come up with a PDF version that shows the town board, all the trails within the town border.
Yeah.
And we want to have that printed out on 2 foot by,
Yeah.
you know, sort of as large as possible, 3 foot by 3 foot. If it has to be, break it up into 3 quarters taped together.
Yeah.
I mean, they do that for the assessor's maps. So, you know,
Like that wouldn't be.
No, say the whole, we'll use the whole.
The whole, I know, what we went through
Yeah.
before, we just had the east side of Buffington, it was
Yeah, I know.
normally 12 feet long,
Yeah, no.
5 feet tall.
This doesn't have to be gory detail, though. We're not.
Right.
Assess the trails and the.
No, but
Yeah, you don't
to
tell-
definitively, I'd be able to identify the names of streets and the trails and where it goes to.
Yeah.
right. Okay, so that's an ask. I will ask Elaine to have the GIS people.
This is,
provide
it's the first step, so.
Right.
I don't. well,
Find out what the
I
limitations are.
don't want to, yeah, and I think, yeah, at some point, I think once we look at it, like, talk about it, then I think we need to sit down with them and see what options we have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Needing to share the screen.
Yeah.
Let me join.
Okay. So, website.
So it's a good set.
Before we do that,
Say, well, just for the record, I would like to just say, thank Elaine for meeting with us and seemed much very willing to make this happen.
Yeah, she's been proactive.
Right, I think that's important, to put that in the record.
Yes. One other thing, we did not have our site walk on Sunday. Should we set another date for that? And what would work for folks? This weekend is not good for me because I'm not walking anywhere. And it's,
Yeah, it's Easter.
yeah, oh yeah, there is that little detail too.
And marathon.
Right,
Yeah, just a couple of people have, yeah, Jeff's point, a couple of visitors.
yeah. So I'm gonna be out of town Sunday.
Well, how about the following weekend?
The following,
27th?
okay, by me. Is that a Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday, I was just going a week.
Okay.
Yesterday, or Monday, Sunday.
Sundays are better.
Is there anyone who can't do it on Sunday the 27th? You can? Okay.
Was that the afternoon or what are you guys thinking?
I would prefer the afternoon.
Yeah.
Well,
Is it 1 p.m.? Yeah, it works.
Okay, we probably won't have snow, so that's a good thing.
And no decision making, am I correct?
Correct. Yeah, but we'll still host it.
Oh, okay.
As a, what do you call that? As a field trip,
Sidewalk.
trip or
It's
something?
called a
Sidewalk.
No, they have a name for it in town. I forget what it is, a field trip or something.
I call it.
Oops, sorry. Okay, I'm not feedbacking, right? Okay, so website. So first of all, I have slides. This is a huge topic. We're only going to get through a little bit of it tonight. But I'd like to touch on some main things and know that we're going to spend lots of time on this. We may want to have a website working group because this will just suck up so much time from the whole committee. Let me just bring this up.
While she's pulling it up, I just want to thank Linda for all the work she's put in to this, not only with me recently, but over the years. Quite a bit of work.
On the website,
I'll second that.
Jane and I met to kind of figure out how to the upper Charles
I'm gonna
and
try and marry them.
all right. So let me just go into how to go into slideshows without taking the whole screen over. So let's just ignore. So first of all, I want to get some maps, but there's some basics to go through first. It's a trails web thing. It's not a trails committee thing. So the users are people in town. The users are not us. This is not for us to post all our committee documents. They might be there, but that's not what we're talking about now. And at some point, we should talk about where we store committee documents and things. It's also not a site, it's pages on the town's website. So we say Trails website, we can say that, but just so we know it's not really a site.
Yeah, as chair, do I get my picture up here?
Of where?
Well, where it says trails, I think the chair's picture ought to be up there.
We
Sure.
want to
Wanna
attract,
give me-
we want to attract people, Peter.
Oh.
Okay, sorry, that's not very big. Okay, a very brief history, and I want to try to set the record a little straight. For a while, the Trails TCMC, the old, not UCT, but the TCMC, had issues working with the town on the website, on the web pages. We tried then to move to an outside contractor because of those issues. The town said, you can't do that. But they became more responsive. They said, you have to work with us, but we'll be more responsive, and they worked. However, we got delayed, partly because these committees merged, partly because I got busy, blah, blah, blah. But now we're ready to work with them and hopefully they'll be responsive. So let's stay with the cooperative, positive. There were some issues. Let's try not to focus on that. Let's try to look forward. And when we did work with them after the reset, they were much better. with some caveats, but, so we do have a web page in the town. And the Trails Club also has a web page, a website. They have a website that has been maintaining the maps, a lot of trail info and other things. The Trails Club website will remain, but the whole maps part of it, they want, this was what John and I talked about before, want to give off to us. So we'll maintain the maps part. They'll still have some of the other stuff that they had. So if we go to the town webpage, I'm gonna go there now. I think this is it. Yeah, so I'm not gonna talk about how you get here because that's an issue and we'll deal with that another time. It can be addressed, but right now it stinks. If you manage to get here, it's a page that has a list of the trails in town in alphabetical order. Each one has a picture and it has some basic information. And this is not just town-owned trails. This is supposed to be for all trails. And that's what's here now. It's incomplete. It's missing lots of stuff. It's not what we want ideally, but that's what is there now. And that's what we want to add to.
Right, and these are listed by trail networks. So Berry Acres has multiple trails.
Right, that's a really good point. So coming back here, the UCT, we now have to have all of this come together. The UCT has 2 pages or 2 sites, if you will. One of them is this, nope, whoops, it's this one. This is the one, oops, on the town. Oh, how did I lose that?
I think if you drop the banner, that's all.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. So this is the Upper Charles Committee's page on the town website. And it's frankly pretty out of date. It doesn't have that much useful information.
Doesn't even exist anymore, so.
Well, this is the committee. So one of the tasks should be to clean all this up,
Yeah.
get rid of the old stuff. And some of this stuff maybe can come over to the new site. And we'll have to figure that out. So the new site for all trails should have an Upper Charles portion to it. And some of this stuff should probably be in it, but we don't know the details yet. Another page is the Upper Charles Trail Committee created a Hopkinton Trails Committee website. And it has a lot of info on it.
Sorry, who did?
It's the Upper Charles Trail Committee has a site called Hopkinton Trails Committee.
After it was disbanded,
Oh,
or we still maintained the website. So this was a choice that this committee could have used if they wanted to.
okay.
Okay, so you in your own time should follow the links to this and see what of it we might want to have on our website. But whatever, so we should go through this at some point and pull stuff off. Okay, but then back to what we might want. So, oops, okay. So that's the history of the UCT websites. And we'll have to pull some of that stuff over at some point, remembering who our audience is, because the Upper Charles Trail will be a project for a long time. And people will want to know things about that project,
The historical
But-
data.
but they won't necessarily want to know the level of detail that we want to know. So we have to think about what we put on the website. Okay, I just want to talk really quickly about how you update, how you make a website, web pages through the town. So first of all, it says it needs to be easy to keep up to date. Somebody, I think it was you who has raised that. If you don't keep a website up to date, it's meaningless. It takes a lot of work to do that. And working with the IT group is really, really hard. Not because the IT group's bad, but I maintain not quite a few websites. I just go in and do stuff. I'm done in 2 minutes. Anything you want to do here, You have to spell out every single detail. You have to check it all. It's really, really, really painstaking. It takes 20 times as long to work with an IT group. It's not their fault. It's just, how do you tell someone fix the typo on this page? You have to say, here's the page, here's where it is in that page, here's what it here's what it should be. It just takes forever. So given that, we can, I mean, this is the spreadsheet of all the tasks that I give to IT to work on, and you can look at it for fun sometime. Quick changes and updates are almost infeasible. So they say, oh, we can do something quickly, but they really, I mean, quickly means 2 days to a week. It's not like you could say, oh, we're having a trail walk tomorrow and it got rained out, update that. You can't really do that kind of thing. So I think we don't want our website, at least initially, to be anything newsy. I think initially we just want it to be referencey, and maybe someday we'll have new stuff on it. But for now, let's just not, because we have so much other work to do.
Linda, can I ask a question? You probably just answered, I'm just gonna ask it anyways. Is there a way where we could create a place that we could just upload something that automatically is tagged as showing up on a news feed or something? Like, if you don't know the answer, maybe we could follow up.
I don't know the answer,
Because
and
usually that's,
I think we want to do that ultimately, but I just think for right now, it shouldn't be a priority because of how hard. They don't have that process in place yet. At least they didn't before. So they kind of have to build it, and I don't know if, I
Yeah.
don't think it's a priority because there's so much other work we'll be asking them to do.
well, yeah, so what you're committing, here's exactly what I'm thinking, right? If we're gonna be engaging with the community, we want to be able to very quickly, and this is the feedback we got in the UCTC world, right? We want to be able to very quickly play it back to them and put it somewhere visible. If we don't show that we're engaging with the community who we have, we can get momentum that way, or we can completely lose momentum. So my thinking is if we have a folder that we can upload documents to and just have a link to say
That-
community engagement and go to that
So
folder.
we
And
have a
then
permanent folder
Yeah.
called community
Yeah.
engagement or news or
Yeah.
things like that, and we can point people to Google Docs, those we can.
yeah, something like that, a couple of just locations that we can have a little bit of a flexibility. So, okay, thanks.
Okay, less is more. We want to have everything on here, but A, gets too full, and B, it just takes too much time. This is the whole conversation from before. At least initially, we want to reuse as much information as possible. If Halt has a map, we're going to use that. If Trails Club is providing the info on work days and guided walks, we'll link to them. We're not going to repeat things because then you run the risk of things being out of date and incorrect. If Trails Works is great for mountain bikers, we're going to send people to that rather than try to repeat everything. And in our own website, we should have things in only one place in general, because otherwise it gets, again, conflicting, out of date. So in summary, we should consider this, and this is, feel free to push back, but I think we should think of our trail website as a place that points to a lot of other resources. We source some things ourselves, but mostly we're kicking off a lot. And it's going to be developed in stages over time. We should prioritize the most useful and important and easiest things first. And I just want to say this too. We are not going to have the ultimate trail site that has the best features of every app and every site out there. I know, like Jack, you said you want to be able to say, hey, give me some 4-mile loop examples for running. I don't think we're going to be able to do stuff like that. I mean, it would be nice, maybe someday, but if we do, it's certainly down the road. We can dream.
It's aspiration.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, well, but priority wise, it probably has to come later. Okay, let's not talk about access for now, because we can make it better. Okay, so with that in mind, what do we think? This is my take, but I would like other input. What are the main uses for our Trails web pages? And I sort of threw these up here in priority order, in my opinion, but everybody doesn't all fit on.
Visually impaired.
What's that?
I'm visually impaired.
Okay, do you want to move?
Huh?
Do you want to move?
Soon out of town, are you
No,
dismissing?
Little bit,
Um,
sorry, just lost that.
Yeah, that's good, thanks.
Okay. So I'll have a minute and look at it and then we can sort of walk through it.
I think what we should have a section about us.
Mm-hmm. Like who maintains the trails for,
Well,
for that?
sort of. I feel like that's a lower level cross
Okay.
navigation, so to speak. No, forget the website.
And the FAQ.
No,
I have a section
I-
for us. It just doesn't happen to show up.
it's not a,
We would-
yeah, I think it's a
not one of the
headline. I think
examples.
the Hopkins Trails Committee is a headliner section, you know,
Mm.
a little bit about our mission, what we work on,
Mhm.
structure,
Okay, we have
contact us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not part of, okay, these list of questions. Anything else missing from here or?
Do you want to put in like recreation features like lakes or overlooks or,
People like it.
Yeah, like in here, information about trails, like,
yeah,
Yeah, like there could be historical
Mhm.
aspects of it, seen.
good picnic areas,
Yeah.
if you want to hike to a picnic area.
Yeah, key features almost, something.
Yeah,
Parking.
Yep, that's part of the features.
yeah, that's.
Is there parking?
Yeah. Where? Is there parking in Open Farm Trail?
Like as an example question, someone would ask, is there parking?
Yeah, and I think the network, the trail networks slide had some of that stuff. So Barry Akers talked about, here's the map and
Right.
parking. So that if you go to one of those, you click on it and go, okay. But to your point, having specific features.
If this is basically what people want to use the website for and we can add to it or take away later, but if that's basically it, it sort of breaks into these menu items or these categories. So trail maps being the main thing, detailed trail info about each trail. And I'm not exactly completely sure what belongs there, but those are some suggestions. A rules and safety page. Trail groups is important because there are so many in town. People don't know who does what. Trail projects probably should be a page. That's probably where Upper Charles mainly would go. More resources. Contact us. Maybe it needs to be more than contact us. I was thinking that's where we have info about us.
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
Contact
and
us.
Trails Committee. I mean, whatever. So, very good job. And, it's great. What about, just looking for a second, the, connections to other, groups within town, like. whether
So
it's the
that's the
Trails group.
trail groups. Trail groups.
Oh, so trail groups.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
and so we're not gonna get through all of this tonight, but that, I do have a whole page on trail groups, but
Okay.
I think I want to mainly try to get to the overview maps page tonight and save some of the rest. Okay, so,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I
yeah.
have one comment on 9. So back to 9. There's a trail going in near my house. What's going on?
mhm. I think under trail projects,
That's what I was thinking too, but I was just like, it's, that it may be a project or not. I was just like, we're talking about notifying abutters and stuff like that. And how would they get there? Is it apparent that it's a project? I don't know if that's true, Linda. It makes sense, but it's not intuitive.
maybe in the contact us page, we can have something about that.
So just thinking out loud.
Well, there's there's a contact us question too, but you want to,
Like I said, there's a trail going in my house. I've heard of trails going in and out. What's going on? And that's the question. And where would I go?
Contact us.
I think,
It's up-
I don't know.
No, but they should be able to look at. Real time.
It's gotta be intuitive.
Okay, it's on, it's on.
Back is for, when you can't easily find something with a menu, sometimes you put those things in a fact troop. So maybe there.
We ask questions.
Because that's one of those things
Yeah.
where it would be maintained relatively.
Yep.
Infrequently, but not infrequently enough where.
Yeah.
You would have to go to a Google, I'm sorry, for pointing at you, a Google Doc, you know, that we could update, be like, oh, it's that type of thing. I'm just.
No, I think an FAQ for that might be a good thing. That has that as one of the questions.
Sorry, Linda, I know you're aching to get to this. I'm not gonna change any of the points. Just a quick contextual question, I guess. So you said less is more. I agree with that. Is this sort of the target state? And we, in a future meeting, we'll say, okay, let's focus on this with the IT group, or are you thinking this is less? Because this is a lot.
I'm thinking this is the end thing.
End state.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
But,
agree
and so
with that.
there will be priorities within
Yeah.
this, but
Yeah. We could say focus on, maybe go top to bottom or whatever the right thing is. Maybe we need to contact us in this first or, okay.
right, I have a page at the end with my proposed priorities.
Oh, you
We
do.
can-
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Didn't-
no worries. All right,
About 10 minutes
okay.
total left.
Okay, so this is really ugly, but rough idea of what we might want the main page to look like. So it combines the best of some other maps, like if you ever go to the Hopkinton Trails Club site, this is what it looks like. It's a map there with these dots for all the trails. But it doesn't have what HALT has, which is when you hover over one of those dots, it gives you that info. So we would have all the maps in town like Trails Club, but we would add the pop-up like HALT does. And our current page that lists all the trails vertically, we would also allow that. Because sometimes you don't know where a trail is on the map and you just kind of want to look at things. And like the HALT website, it's not as easy to do that. You kind of have to start with a map. So I know I said we wouldn't be the be all and end all, but it's not hard to combine those three things. So the way the page would work, there'd be like a menu across the top, there'd be a search feature. This is just part of normal Hopkinton sites. The main page you come to would be the trail info and maps. The other pages you could get to. Someday maybe we would have news and that could show up on the home page, but not now. So if you pick one, this pops up, and if you click more info, it gives you a whole lot more info down below on that particular trail. If you don't pick anything, you just scroll down the whole page and look at all the trails. Like you see the map, but you can scroll down the page and see all of them. So that's the basic idea. And before we go any further, feedback on that, because
I have unless it's there, north, south, east, west.
oh, good idea.
And then,
I'm just gonna put the comment.
scale, yeah.
And just so we're clear, Linda, this would be every trail in town.
Yes. No matter who owns it.
Who are maintained again.
Yeah, these are trail members.
Then here's the important part. If it's a HALT trail, when you click on map, it's gonna take you to the HALT map. If it's more info about this map, about this trail, and it's a HALT trail, you click on more info, it's taking you to the HALT site. We're not gonna repeat everything.
Will we have a write-up for the whole trails and the DCR trails and the Audubon trails? Like, so, as we say,
Well,
you either go to the map or you scroll down.
when you scroll down, there will be a little write-up.
Yeah,
but-
okay,
But for more info, you go off to
to the
the.
website. Yeah, yeah, okay, that's all. That's,
It kind of creates a little bit of a jumbled experience because for one thing, you're getting a PDF map, for another thing, you're getting this nice HALT interactive thing, but
Well, you're also going out probably a new pop-up window, hopefully. And not away from our site when you go to home.
that's, yep, good point, yep. The other thing too is we probably want to include an OSM kind of link for each trail too, because if
Yeah.
it's just a PDF, it's not that, it's helpful, but so I think for each of them, and especially if we have enough, we can have that big OSM on here too. Of the town things for anybody who really wants to look at it, but. So you would go off to HALT or you could go off to the OSM if you like that better. Any other overall thoughts?
I would definitely note the pop-up because I just had a thought that if we get a dead link and it takes them to a separate website, then they're gonna think our website's default. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to be able to have them X out that pop-up.
Would it be helpful to list neighboring
It's
towns?
called a pop-up. Well, so when they click on the link for halt,
Yeah,
it'll pop,
goes
it'll
to a
keep
new
our
window.
original,
no, it'll go to a new tab.
okay.
It
new
won't be a
tab.
pop-up, it'll
Okay,
go to a
new tab.
Yeah,
I'm Probably too old school. I'm probably
that's
too old
okay.
to call it pop-up, but yeah, new tab. So the other one will stay existing. Perfect.
Kind of like tabs here,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah, okay.
Don't you want to make sure that it's mobile friendly?
yes, absolutely, yeah. The town does
Particular map is not mobile friendly.
on the trails
Yeah.
website,
Yeah.
okay.
Can't like, you can, if you click on the dots at home,
Uh-huh.
it takes you to the map of that area, but on your phone, it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay,
Those are-
yeah, and that's why Trails Club says take over the trail maps.
Yeah.
The whole thing. It's, yeah. Okay, and this is what GIS towns, GIS web people will help us with.
Would be helpful to note the neighboring towns, maybe? I'm not sure.
Sometimes.
So under more resources, we're gonna link off to the Trails Club website, which does that.
Okay.
Again, I don't wanna repeat stuff. Maybe someday we'll fold more of that in, but
That's enough, sufficient.
okay.
Once others suggested,
Mhm.
like that particular map just has the dots. Do we also want to at least show where the trails are between the dots or around the dots?
I don't think so. I think it would be really hard.
It's too busy.
Agreed.
I would love to show the names, but I think even that is too
Okay.
busy.
All right.
If there was,
So we'll get a better handle once we look at the
Yeah.
map, because that, Lexington, certainly the across Lexington map, it's busy, but it has that, and it's 8.5 by 11, and you can still see, oh, there's a lot of trails, and that's their,
maybe our OSM could turn into something like
Yeah.
that at some point.
Yeah.
I just was with someone from Lexington last week and she was telling me she doesn't use that map because she can't understand it. It's too confusing. She uses the trails, but she's like, I can't use that map.
Mhm.
It's just kind of interesting.
Linda, are the dots colored? Are they colored here?
The red dots means you can click on it and then that would give you the pop-up for that trail.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Is that color? If they were colored, and does color mean anything, or could you color them and have
We
meaning?
can color them any color we want. Would we want them to have meaning? I don't know, maybe. Like who owns it? I don't know.
No, I don't know. I just don't know. I guess the question was just in general. Could they be colored, and if did you want them colored to mean something?
I think it just meant a red square is a trail.
Perfect.
So we definitely need a legend saying that or something though.
It's not really thinking.
Why don't you color by owner? Because if, especially
Did you
if
say why?
no, I like that idea.
See, I don't, because
Because then you know you're being redirected to somebody else's website.
well, but you're not unless you click on more info or map. You're still gonna get the pop-up no matter what.
So the pop-up gives you a link, yeah? Right, and so that's, so you know, like if I go to the Audubon, I click on Wasika and boom, I know I'm gonna go to the Wasika website.
We should test that out. Good color indicate owner. I just don't know if people care too much about that, but we can find out. It's a good trial.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter's like moving along. So let me jump ahead. A lot of stuff for other days. Okay, so back, priorities, where's the priority list? Here we go, priorities. You can't see the title, but that's what it says. This is a list of proposed priorities. The first thing I'd love to do to the town's web pages is add a contact us page for problem reporting, as well as people can suggest things, comments, things like that. It's pretty easy to do. I can bring the mock-up of that to the next meeting or we have some people meet and we can get that going and have the town implement it because Trails Club is kind of getting doesn't really want to be the one to field those questions. And we also have to have a process for how that page would get responded to.
Mhm.
So maybe when we have, it might not be next meeting because we have a pretty full agenda
Mhm.
already, but a future, that would be my top priority. Continue collecting the info from the trails and keep updating that main page there before we do the map part, just so that, because you need all that info anyhow. So just keep doing it. I can work with IT and whoever else wants to work on this to do it. We should start getting the outdated info removed. And if anybody else wants to work on this project, that might be a good sub-project. Somebody could clean out the CTC stuff, the old CCMC stuff, because that's still on the town's webpage too, website. At some point, we need to figure out how the Upper Charles Trail project would be incorporated. My opinion is we should have it as, and I'm talking to Jane about this, we should have it on that main page and somehow just indicate it. It's a big project in process. It doesn't exist yet. And somewhere show it maybe at the Milford connector, because we know it's going to connect there. And then have that link off to the Upper Charles project page, but it's included on that big map even now. So
There's a lot of historical data that's been collected over the years, and as you mentioned, a place to store it. Because as we go into different areas, people are really going to be interested in the history of it and the existing documents and engineering studies. And
It might,
it's not for the everyday person, but it's a good, I think we need to maintain those as reference materials.
it might feel like a box in the back of a garage, but the folder concept I mentioned might be a use for that.
Yeah.
You can have a couple folders underneath Upper Charles. One could be more current and historical reference documents or something.
Same with the, TCMC, those both, the
Yeah.
historical from
Yeah,
the.
we should have a semi-archive or historical folder.
So all of these pages should have dates on them.
what?
Well, you can just tell, if you go to, say, one of these historical web pages, you can tell when it was actually.
A lot of the data has the dates on.
Yeah, that's good. That's all.
For the historical things, that's a good idea.
Mhm.
So at some point before we get too far along, though, we want to figure out how to do things like canoe trails or other odd things, so we don't box it out. I just don't know how to incorporate that into the kind of map we have. I haven't thought about it. If there's other things
Yeah.
like that, we just want to make sure we can include them. And then we should move on to that big overall map page and working with IT on that. And then just keep filling everything in that isn't filled in. So, and this is a big project. It'll probably take a year or more.
Yeah.
It's very ambitious, to your credit. I mean, it's amazing.
So the other thing is, does anyone else, so first of all, how do these priorities sound?
That's great.
It's good. Yeah, share this document at all?
Yeah, I'll put it in the minutes, PDF. And does anybody want to work on the website with me? Do website stuff.
I don't know if I'll have time.
What?
I don't know if I'd have time, but one of you, if you need projects, ping me with requests and all, if I can help
Okay.
you,
Thanks. Anyone else?
helping hands, but I can't.
You try, I don't know what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in a state of flux due to my mother being in an unstable situation.
It's tough. All right, if anybody else gets the urge, just, call me up in the middle of the night and let me know. Okay, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. All right, back to the.
Great. I have just a question for maybe a featured meeting. So we have this sort of special meeting that we inserted.
Right.
And then we have two other meetings before our fiscal year ends, correct?
Correct.
Who is expiring? From the group. I think our group is gelling quite nicely, so if people are interested, I think I'd like
What's
to
on YouTube?
proactively get people.
only have
Three
6
three
months.
people.
I
Yeah,
thought
but
it
you
was
just-
only Fran who expired.
No, 3, 3, and 3.
No, I expire in June.
So.
Maybe, this is
Expired.
I didn't want that to go unthought of, so we're going to talk about it, but I heard very valuable members, our group is just going to gel.
Yeah, but I got a message from the town saying, would you like to apply?
Oh, you did?
I did that. Yes, so I did as well.
Oh, good. Okay, so we don't need to do anything.
TBD.
TBD.
Okay. So they have
Discuss some other,
Was that?
TBD,
Okay.
TBD.
I think that guy who, what's his name?
You stop by.
He comes to the Trails Club meetings. His wife is
His wife is Michelle. I can't remember.
I know
Andrew.
his name
Andrew?
normally and it's
See?
escaping me. He applied,
Yeah, Chuck.
no.
Andrew, I think.
Andrew. He's been coming to work days and Trails Club meetings because if you step off, he would want to step in. So don't feel like you'd leave us in the lurch. But if you want to stay, stay because he's just learning and working.
Peter, okay. Counting procedures we won't talk about because it's 9:05.
But Scott's here.
I know.
What do you want to talk about?
What,
Counting procedures.
we're gonna be talking about money items at
Oh,
the next
yeah, yeah.
meeting, so
Yeah.
let's make sure.
Well, that would allow me to actually prepare for it too. Not that it's a lot I need to prepare.
Yeah,
I mean, do I need to get a general ledger download or anything like that? Because it's all sort of in waiting.
no, it's talking through with the town as to what their accounting procedures they'd like us to follow if we start invoicing things.
Well, I know that procedure as a treasurer, but I don't know if it's different for us because of the transfer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we want
We
to
can
check
get
into
it.
it? I'm happy.
Yes, check into it and.
So
for next
first
meeting.
probably Elaine and then the finance group
Mhm.
in that order, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
To see if there's any nuances.
Just like a call.
Okay,
Sorry.
I have a motion to,
we'll still be able to adjourn without your presence, so.
There you go. It is very valuable second there, Peter.
Okay.
So I added this, so when I do the minutes, I can highlight agenda items. I wonder if we should have a running agenda item page, like when
Yeah.
we say things that should be coming up, we can put it on there.
Yeah, sort of like the way the select board does.
yeah.
If they maintain it, the old one didn't.
They don't really. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And then at the end of the meeting, just asking if there's any we didn't think of during the meeting. That's,
It's like agenda candidates item.
yeah.
Candidates for
Yes,
agenda.
exactly. Then Peter can plug them.
Good.
Is there anything that belongs on there now that,
I think we're gonna talk map, website, priority projects. And then, overall priority projects and then money priority projects.
problem.
And I think that'll be plenty of stuff to talk about.
Price from our next week meeting too, right?
What's that?
Right. And yes,
Did you say you inserted another meeting?
oh, weren't you
Oh.
here then? Yeah.
I wasn't here then.
Yeah, we.
Next Wednesday.
What is
Next
the?
Wednesday.
April 23rd, 7 to 8, specifically,
Listening session with the select. board.
to talk about the overall general framework for
We're gonna-
listening session.
Well, the select board.
No,
board.
Full committee, full committee.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Real.
Really.
and the real stump speech. Linda, can you just change terms will end in June and get rid of will expire? I know that's what Scott said, but
I did?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, she's very good at taking little terms.
I know, when I go back and clean these things up, I have to look. for that.
Yeah, and what, you caught that corrected and it corrected my leave expiration? Leave.
Oh, you said the people. I said the people. I said.
I think you did.
I said
because it meant-
No, I said.
No, you said summarize action items. Do we have to do that or can I just call them in the minutes?
Yes, I believe, yeah,
It is a good idea to do that.
yes, okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Be a
favor?
third of what?
I was gonna say, I didn't think you can move, but that's all right.
Peter, you running Monday?
You know, this
I am.
felt like a lot of
Thank you.
action.
You are?
Yeah. Well, it was really good. We're making some progress.
Yeah,
Starting to show.
those project updates are really fun to hear tonight.
All righty.
Next week's meeting is at here or? Where's
We don't know yet.
Yeah, I'll post
Then
it.
there's a sidewalk.
Yeah,
Right, were you
Yes.
here with the sidewalk?
Farms on the
Yes.
27th.
yes.
Yeah, so the